the nature of physical death and liberation from human constructs. But some people find that morbid, so I've generally refrained from it, although for me, death, like life, is the biggest mystery. And unless we embrace that mystery and begin to actually dwell in the mystery and revel and celebrate the mystery, our humanity will be incomplete. So let me know if you'd like me to discuss the deeper meaning of death and the whole concept. And I'll just call it a concept of the idea of death as a false idea. So if you want me to do that, let me know if that's a good idea, and I'll start a series, because experiential knowledge of mystery, both life and death, is also healing, ultimate healing, actually. But today I want to talk about the movement from the rational ego mind to the synchronistic mind, which is the whole mind, the healed mind, the holy mind, the sacred mind, and how that can actually help us heal as well. Doesn't matter. There's a COVID-19 crisis, which we have to deal with on a practical level and on an emotional level. But ultimately, the solution to all suffering, including that which is coming from this pandemic, is a spiritual solution. So with that caveat, let me tell you what the rational ego mind is. The rational ego mind is the separate, fragmented mind that identifies with its constructs. Once again, the rational ego separate mind is the fragmented mind that identifies with all its constructs. And these constructs are ultimately, fundamentally derived from sensations, sense perceptions, images, feelings, thoughts, but the narrative around those, the story around those. And that narrative creates an identity. We call that identity a result of object referral, identifying with objects, which are in fact projections of our own self as perceptual entities and cognitive entities. Everything that we call an object is a projection of our own self. But when we identify with our projections, and those projections are meanings derived from relationships, situations, circumstances, events, people. Take all of that projection, your own projection, identify with that, create the subject-object split in the mind, and call it rationality, and actually verify it through what are called empirical facts. So this is the big test of scientific truth, empirical facts. But empirical facts are just a species-specific mode of knowing and experience using a human nervous system. There's nothing absolutely true about any empirical fact until you ask the question, who or what is experiencing that which we call the empirical fact? Because what we call the empirical fact is nothing other than a space-time event in consciousness interpreted as a fact. And of course, that space-time event has to be with the aid of a human nervous system and the species of consciousness that we call human. If we eliminate that one requirement, then the empirical fact becomes a fanciful, rational, mind-created entity. The empirical fact is that. It has use because, once we start to create constructs around the so-called empirical fact, then we come up with deeper constructs, symbolic representations of experience like electromagnetic fields, atoms, waves, particles, gravity, the fabric of space and time, all created in our consciousness as a result of subject-object split, the idea of empirical facts, and the notion that the only reality is human reality. It's a bit of hubris, actually, if you think about it. So for today's conversation, all I want to do is separate the local ego, separate, constructed, fabricated ego mind, and show you how that's different from what we call the whole mind, or the non-local mind, or the true self, or I am. I am is the secret, always. The secret of the law of attraction, the secret to immortality, the secret to everything, and that's what we're doing in this series. Okay, so the local mind is the ego mind. And the non-local mind is what we call the soul and spirit. And the local mind is individual. The non-local mind is the individual as the soul with karma, memory, and desire. The local mind is conditioned consciousness. The non-local mind is relatively pure consciousness, not totally pure consciousness, which is Brahman, ultimately, not even Jiva. The local mind is linear. The non-local mind is synchronistic. So the local mind believes in cause-effect relationships. In fact, spiritual term for it is karma, the karmic mind. And the non-local mind is, of course, synchronistic. It correlates everything with everything. Everything. Everything is entangled with everything. The local mind is always operating within the confines of space-time and causality. The non-local mind operates outside space-time and causality. Causality does not apply to the non-local mind. The Vedanta says space begins when we have a body, time begins when we start thinking, and causation begins when we apply limitations. So the local mind is time-bound and limited. The non-local mind is timeless and infinite. The local mind is conditioned into habitual ways of thinking, behavior shaped by individual and collective experience. The non-local mind is intuitive, creative, visionary, and sacred. The local mind is separating me from you. The non-local mind is the unified mind. In the local mind, the inner dialogue is this is me, and this is mine. And in the non-local mind, all is me and mine. All is me and mine. Not just this or that or this. All this is me and mine. The local mind is dominated by fear. The non-local mind is dominated by love, but not love as a mere sentiment or emotion. Love is the ultimate truth of unity consciousness. The local mind requires energy. The non-local mind operates without energy. We also call it, by the way, sometimes the unconscious mind, because you can have unconscious experiences. Your cells are having unconscious experiences as far as your conscious mind is concerned. And yet your cells have cybernetic feedback loops and self-referential guidance and response to toxins or nutrients. So, at some level, there is awareness in every cell of your body, and it is being automatically run by the non-local mind. So that non-local mind, which does not interfere at all with what is called autonomic functioning, that non-local mind ultimately is the source of all energy, but it itself is only potential energy. Okay, so the non-local mind actually comes from a source which is beyond space-time, energy, matter, information, cause, effect, all of that. The local mind interprets the I within the observer as different than the I of that which is observed. So I think that the I in me is different than the I am in you, but it is the same I am, conditioned in a different way. I'm looking at some of the notes because I thought I should at least look at them because I made them, and I made them for you. Okay, so the non-local mind thinks in cause and effect modalities. Sorry, the local mind thinks in cause and effect modalities. The non-local mind sees an acausal. Acausal means without cause. It sees an acausal connection and interdependence and inseparability of all minds. So the I am here is the same as the I am in you, except with a different programming. So the non-local mind knows and experiences the same I in the observer as in the observed. The local mind is algorithmic. It can be programmed into a computer. The non-local mind is non-local, therefore non-algorithmic. It cannot be programmed into a computer. The local mind is relatively continuous. One thought follows the other sequentially in terms of logic and in terms of rationality, of which we understand now. It's just a story around so-called empirical facts. But the non-local mind is discontinuous. The local mind is conscious. The non-local mind, I said earlier, is unconscious, but we could also say is supra-conscious. The local mind is active when senses are active because sensory experience is local. But the non-local mind is always active, even without the use of energy. It's more available to itself when our senses are in abeyance or they are withdrawn, as in sleep, as in dreams, as in meditation, as in drowsiness, as in trance, as in prayer. These days, I'm spending a lot of time enjoying myself, really enjoying myself, navigating this non-local mind, which is more amorphous, more ambiguous, more paradoxical, more contradictory, more visionary, more caring, and ultimately the expression of pure love. And it's absolute pure joy to navigate this non-local mind without the use of books or information or all the scholarly work that has gone into understanding it, because it needs to be self-discovered. And that's what self-realization is. So the local mind expresses itself through voluntary nervous system, individual choice. The non-local mind expresses itself through autonomic and endocrine systems, and most importantly, through the synchronization of those systems and also the synchronization of the microcosm with the macrocosm. It's very well set up in an Upanishad as the aphorism Yatha Pinde Tatha Brahmande. As is the atom, so is the universe. As is the microcosm, so is the macrocosm. As is the human mind, so is the cosmic mind. So as is the drop in the ocean, so is the ocean in the drop. How do we know whether our ego mind is dominating? Well, the ego mind is dominating when emphasis is predominantly on me and mine, on making a profit of some kind, on competition, on some kind of conflict. Ultimately, military conflict is nothing other than the ego mind on a mass scale. So the constricted ego mind creates violence, it creates fear, it creates greed, arrogance, aggression. It's demanding, it's disgruntled, it's unhappy, it's inflammatory. It interferes with self-regulation, homeostasis, and healing. On the other hand, your non-local expanded self emphasizes sharing, cooperation. It has an open heart. It is all sentient beings in the human family. It is non-violent. It resolves all conflicts through conscious interaction, what we call conscious sharing of ideas and creativity and vision. And it is humble. It's not full of hubris as the local mind is. It's conciliatory, it is gracious, it is fulfilled, and it harnesses the power of synchronicity. So what I thought today is just share the difference between local, linear, ego, fragmented mind, and the whole or sacred healing mind. And as we move from one to the other through various techniques, then only do we have true healing. And I'll keep exploring this with you. But what I thought today, I'll end with one hymn from the Rig Veda, and it is a healing hymn. I've shared it with you before, and then a short poem from my favorite poet, Rabindranath Tagore. All has to do with what we are talking about today. So let me get my notes out, and I'll start with the hymn of the Rig Veda for ultimate healing, which is about moving from local to non-local mind. I'm reading it now from my notes. Although my spirit may wander the four corners of the earth, let it come back to me again so that I may live and journey here. Although my spirit may go far away over the sea, let it come back to me again so that I may live and journey here. Although my spirit may go far away to the flashing beams of light, let it come back to me again so that I may live and journey here. Although my spirit may go far away to visit the sun and dawn, let it come back to me again so that I may live and journey here. Although my spirit go far away over the lofty mountains, let it come back to me again so that I may live and journey here. Although my spirit may go far away into all forms that live and move, let it come back to me again so that I may live and journey here. Although my spirit may go far away to distant realms, let it come back to me again so that I may live and journey here. Although my spirit may go far away to all that is and is to be, let it come back to me again so that I may live and journey here. Although my spirit may wander in the valley of death, let it come back to me again so that I may live and journey here. And to end today's conversation, I picked out a poem about moving away from the ego, and this is some tattered notes from a long time ago, Rabindranath Tagore, and it's about moving away from the ego. I came out alone on my way to my tryst. But who is this that follows me in the silent dark? I move aside to avoid his presence, but I can't escape him. He makes the dust rise from the earth with his swagger. He adds his loud voice to every word that I utter. He is my own little ego self, my Lord. He knows no shame, but I am ashamed to come to your door in his company. That's the movement from ego, linear, rational mind, fragmented and suffering, to the whole sacred mind that is holy and healed. So that's it, my friends. I'm just remembering that I usually end these conversations with a mantra for the day. So here is the mantra of the day. Again, my notes. I'm just finishing this book, which is called Total Meditation: How to Live the Awakened Life After MetaHuman. And the mantra for today: Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. What does it mean? Awareness embraces eternal truth. Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. All best. See you tomorrow.
Good morning, my friends. This is Deepak. Once again, good morning. I'm very happy to join you again today to continue our discussion on the spiritual solutions to existential anxiety, suffering, and the fear of death. I believe, to some extent, that is a pandemic right now. Existential anxiety, suffering, emotional and psychological, and the fear of death. So this is part of a series, and I'm going to continue with the series. I've also heard from you that you're interested in a conversation on the meaning of death, and I promise I will engage in that. The meaning of death is tied up with the meaning of birth and life, of course. Life contains birth and death. Birth makes death possible, and death makes birth possible. But today, we are not going to go there. Ultimately, by the way, that is the ultimate healing, to transcend all fear by transcending the fear of death, by understanding the nature of death. So I will definitely address that. But in the meanwhile, I want to continue on this series that I've started, which is understanding the opposite of existential anxiety. And what is the opposite of existential anxiety? It's existential joy. It's existential surprise. It's existential bewilderment. It's existential wonder. So when you take existence for granted, and when you suddenly realize that you cannot take it for granted, then you experience fear. But if you have never taken existence for granted, if you've always been grateful and surprised and bewildered and awestruck and full of wonder for your existence, then you will have no existential anxiety, because you will embrace the mystery of existence, abide in the mystery of existence, and know that existence is eternal. Only its symbolic representations are not. But today, actually, I want to go deep into the nature of this amazing mystery of existence. And I started by saying that I am is cradled in the rhythms of the universe, cradled in the rhythms of the universe, and is the source of synchronicity, grace, spontaneous fulfillment of desire, and ultimately all healing. So once again, I am is cradled in the rhythms of the universe, is the source of synchronicity, or what we call good luck, or meaningful coincidences, synchronicity, but also, as a result of that, what spiritual traditions call the state of grace, and what spiritual traditions also call ultimate healing. Okay, so let's discuss that. We've all experienced coincidences, but what we don't realize is that actually coincidence means coinciding. Synchronicity means many events all occurring at the same time, but coinciding with each other in response to a subtle intention or around a meaning or around purpose. And then somehow events conspire and correlate with each other in response to the organizing power of that intention. And of course, I've spoken about that too many times. So you've all experienced coincidences. You're thinking of someone, they call you on the phone, you have a desire for chocolate ice cream and somebody shows up with chocolate ice cream, etc., etc. You have a desire for healing, and then your biology orchestrates that intention. So why do some people have good luck all the time and some people not so much? And having been a student of this from the Vedantic perspective and from the non-dual traditions of the world, all I can say is the synchronicity, meaningful coincidences, non-local correlation, coinciding is the nature of existence. Existence is the correlation of every activity in the ecosystem of existence. And existence is an ecosystem. Even the cells of your body are ecosystems. The organelles of your body are ecosystems. The activities of your genes, DNA, are activities of an ecosystem. The organs of the body are part of the ecosystem that we call the body. And the body is part of the ecosystem that we call the biosphere. The biosphere contains the atmosphere too. So, but biosphere is more than the atmosphere. It's the entire ecological interdependence of life. It's the biological interdependence, or we might say even inseparability of life. In many ways, I think of the Buddha as the first ecologist, because as he was sitting under a tree, looking at flowers and buds and leaves, he saw the whole universe. He saw that the universe was the entire universe was represented in every leaf, in every flower, in every bud, in every branch of the tree. He's known for his famous silent sermon where he held a flower, and Ananda, his favorite disciple, looked at the flower and experienced rainbows and sunshine and earth and water and the infinite void and the stars and galaxies, all frozen in the appearance of that flower. And with that, he came up with one of the big principles of Buddhist philosophy, which is interdependence, interbeingness. As Thich Nhat Hanh says, we are interbeings that interarise in the inter-isness. And everything is synchronistic. Now, I was looking at my notes at some of the examples of synchronicity, and maybe I can find them, maybe I can find them, but you know, when you see and look at nature and observe nature, you'll find examples of synchronicity. Birds flying together in one formation, schools of fish moving together, the croaking of frogs at night, or the sound of crickets, or fireflies flashing, human menstrual cycles coinciding. But we don't have to look far. We can just look at any cell in our body, any organ in our body. And it is the conspiracy of the total universe. when we look at synchronicity, what do we see? What are the various characteristics of asynchronicity? And I'm again looking at some of my notes from a long time ago when I was writing The Spontaneous Fulfillment of Desire. Maybe I can find them, but maybe I can't right now. Never mind, I don't need to look at the notes. So here are some of the characteristics of a synchronistic experience. Number one, it is a conspiracy of improbable events or seemingly improbable events. Number two, the improbable events are correlated around meaning, purpose, intention, subtle or not. Number three, synchronicity is orchestrated in a domain outside of space-time and causality, which is the true self, beyond the boundaries of ego. Number four, when we experience synchronicity, we move to higher levels of awareness, like soul consciousness, cosmic consciousness, divine consciousness, unity consciousness. I've talked elsewhere about this, but we can speak more later. Number five, there's an intention involved, always, subtle or not so subtle. Okay, every activity is preceded by intention, including raising my hand or speaking to you or whatever. So intention is involved. Number six, once you start experiencing synchronicities, they accelerate and you experience more of them and your life begins to transform from separation to unity. Number seven, as a result of this, you feel lots of joy and emotional fulfillment. Number eight, you become clear about the meaning and purpose of your existence. And number nine, you realize that your inner world of thoughts, feelings, emotions, desires, memories, insights, inspiration, creativity, vision, higher calling, and your outer world of so-called space-time events in the theater of space-time and causality, that they're actually modifications and symbolic expressions of your own self. The mind is the subjective experience of self, the body and the world are the objective experience of self. So how can we accelerate this experience of synchronicity? So here are some pointers. Number one, see the world as a mirror of yourself. You can't see yourself other than a mirror, but actually the bigger mirror is the world. Every situation, every circumstance, every event, every relationship mirrors what's happening in your own consciousness as the movement of consciousness. Number two, recognize that everything is inseparable from everything else, not just interdependent, it's inseparable. Look at this COVID-19 virus, one virus, and the whole economy of the world is affected. The health of the world is affected. The immune system of the world is affected. Inflammation in the world, not only in our body, but in our behavior, is affected. War, violence, fear, greed, all that is coming out because of a bit of genetic information called RNA in a virus that disrupts the genetic information in your body. And what we call life is the interdependence of all these genetic pieces of information in an ecosystem of existence, where actually the exchange of genetic information has been part of our evolution. But when the ecosystem is disrupted for whatever reason, and the ecosystem includes everything, the atmosphere, the biosphere, social structures, personal relationships, professional engagements, businesses, society, weather patterns, mass migrations, rapid transportation, increased volume of transfer of goods from one place to another, international trade, all of that is affected by one piece of genetic information that has disrupted the ecosystem of relationships at a very fundamental level, at the fundamental level of gene expression. Now, there's a whole host of reasons we can look at that and see that the best approach actually to healing is to understand even the viral transmission in the terms of a holistic framework. But right now, we're not discussing that. What we're discussing is the mechanics of synchronicity and how you can accelerate it. So see the world as a mirror, recognize that everything is inseparable from everything else. See that, in fact, what we call the universe is a projection of our consciousness as sensations, images, perceptions, thoughts, feelings. All that is projecting as both the universe and the body. So recognize that mind, body, universe are symbolic representations of the condition or state of the self. Recognize that existence is inherently joyful and curious and full of wonder and mystery. And mystery. What's the mystery? You are the mystery. Existence is the mystery. But even more mysterious is the awareness of existence, because without the awareness of existence is no knowing of existence. So what is existence? Existence is awareness of existence. The two are inseparable. What is awareness? It's the true self. It's not the mind, it's not the intellect, it's not the ego, it's not the body, it's not perceptual activity, which we call the physical world. Those are all symbolic representations of the true self. The true self, existence, awareness of existence, and inseparability of existence is who we are. That's our true identity. And when we sink into our true identity, we don't have to become our true identity. You can't go to where you already are. You can't move and stand in where you already are. And where you already are is here and now. This experience. And this experience is the totality of the universe. So I'm going to give you a few ideas to play with today to accelerate the experience of joy, wonder, curiosity, synchronicity, grace, and healing, both personal and collective. First intention here, I am the universe. You are the universe. You as pure consciousness and the universe are not separate. Same thing. Number two, my spirit is a field of awareness that connects everything with everything else instantly. Number three, I don't exist in the universe universe exists in me. I don't exist in the mind exists in me. I don't exist in the body exists in me. And who is me? I am existence, recycling itself and evolving to higher levels of creativity and expression and vision. So the universe exists in me. I'm reminded of the phrase in the Bhagavad Gita where Lord Krishna represents here both the masculine and the feminine in many ways. And behind me, if you see the goddess Dakini, that's divine feminine. Krishna is both divine feminine and masculine. So there's a phrase attributed to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita: curving back within myself, I create again and again. Prakratim swam vashtabhai vishrajami puna puna. Prakratim swam vashtabhai vishrajami puna puna. Curving back within myself, I create again and again. The world is my mirror. I am the infinite being projecting a particular point of view. We are all points of view in an infinite non-local being, and my non-local self is inseparable from all that exists. So if you can remember these principles, they can all be coded today in one mantra. So I'll give you the long version of the mantra. Ritam Bhara Pragya. Ritam is the order, the rhythms, the seasons of the universe. You know, those rhythms are operating in our own body right now as circadian rhythms, the cycle of day and night, as seasonal rhythms, as tidal rhythms, gravitational rhythms, as lunar rhythms. The entire universe operates through rhythm, music, symphony, universe, one song. So Ritam is the Sanskrit word, which is the order of the universe, the harmony of the universe. Bhara, full of, pragya, my consciousness is permeated, pervaded, pregnant with infinite possibilities that exists in the rhythms of the universe. Ritam Bhara Pragya. That's the long version of the mantra. Shorter version could be Ritam. Ritam, spelled R-I-T-A-M. Ritam. Or if you want the English word, rhythm, doesn't matter. Let that be the mantra for today. Rhythm means I, as existence, are in alignment with the elements and forces of the universe. And therefore, I'm free. I'm free from dis-ease. Dis-ease leads to, ultimately, disease. Mental, psychological, perceptual anxiety, leading to everything else. You know, anxiety and fear leads to greed, leads to suffering, leads to exploitation, leads to, you know, the other being the enemy when the other and you are inseparable anyway. So right now, the pandemic is reminding us of something. You know, we need to cure not only the physical transmission and decrease the propagation of the virus, but once infected, we need to optimize our well-being at every level: physical, emotional, spiritual, environmental. At another level, we need to also understand the deeper reality and coexistence of all life. And we have to transcend to a new identity that can see that. And once that new identity can see that, there is no fear. No fear of anything, because the unknown has become known to you. And what is the unknown? It's your own self. Not your mind, not your body, not the changing perceptual experiences and sensations or images. It's your true self. And once you know your true self, as we've said so many times before, you're holy and you're healed. So that's really ultimate healing. I will explore this more with you if you want, because there is no reductionist cure for healing. There is no cure for healing. You know, temporary measures, which are very useful in acute situations. Right now, the temporary measure should be, by the way, minimizing the transmission and maximizing immune capacity, minimizing inflammation, minimizing stress, making conscious decisions and choices, whether they're financial or for our well-being in terms of the qualities of experience. And that's all we have, by the way, the qualities of experience. Everything we experience is a quality of awareness. Everything we experience, whether it's a sensation, perception, image, feeling, thought, what we call an object, before we can call it an object, it is an experience. And where's the experience happening? In consciousness. Where's the experience of the body happening? In consciousness. Where's the experience of those colors, paintings, plants happening? In consciousness. Where's the experience of the universe happening? In consciousness. So if you don't know yourself, how can you know the universe? So let's all move in the direction internally of understanding ourselves as an ecology of the universe, as the inseparability of all that exists. Just that one idea, Ritam Bhara Pragya. And then everything happens spontaneously. Healing happens spontaneously. Evolution never stops. Everything recycles. Matter, energy, information, consciousness, but consciousness not only recycles, it evolves. And as a result, identity also evolves. And this is the opportunity we have to reflect on our identity, reflect on our existence, not take it for granted, and being grateful for existence. So once again, the mantra for today is Ritam Bhara Pragya. Here's a poem of gratitude from the great seer, rishi, teacher, guru Rabindranath Tagore. And I end with this poem. Please listen very carefully, it's beautiful. You have made me endless, such is your pleasure. This frail vessel you empty again and again and fill it ever with fresh life. This little flute of a reed you have carried over hills and dales, and you have breathed through it melodies eternally new. At the immortal touch of your hands, my little heart loses its limits in joy and gives birth to utterance ineffable. Your infinite gifts come to me only on these very small hands of mine. Ages pass, and still you pour, and still there is room to fill. That, my dear friends, is gratitude for existence. Gratitude is holy. Gratitude heals as well. So today, Ritam Bhara Pragya.
Good morning, my friends. This is Deepak, continuing our daily exploration of reality during this time of the COVID pandemic. And of course, we are all sheltering, taking precautions, physical distancing, and doing everything, I hope, to decrease inflammation in the body and optimize our immune functioning through the pillars of well-being. Deep rest as in sleep, stress management as in meditation and mindfulness, and yoga and deep breathing, a little bit of movement, healthy emotions and relationships, clean diet, and gratitude for what we have, for existence. And finally, love in action. Love in action. But today, I want to continue with all the things that we are talking about right now. The need for going beyond existential anxiety and human suffering and the fear of death. Because if we conquer that, then everything else is a breeze. We need to understand the mechanics of existential anxiety, which is, of course, linked to not knowing who we are, grasping, clinging, recoiling, resistance, identifying with the ego, and basically the fear of separation and being lonely that leads to all kinds of stresses and panic and ultimately all kinds of anxieties that have to do with the fear of the unknown and with the fact that what we deal with every day is actually unpredictable. The pandemic has only made it more obvious. Embracing unpredictability and uncertainty, in fact, might be the mechanics for every creative solution. And so right now we have the opportunity. But having said that, let's continue with today's topic. And today's topic is I am generates reality through stillness and dynamism. Its activity is seer, seeing, and scenery. Now, this sounds very metaphysical, very abstract, and totally not even practical. But actually, the experiential knowledge of I am is the solution to every problem in the world, including all existential suffering and fear of death. So I am generates reality. I am is pure potentiality. I am is infinite stillness that is pregnant with infinite dynamism. Once again, I am is immeasurable potential of all that was, all that is, all that will be. I am is pregnant at all times with infinite possibilities and pregnant at all times with the imminence of actuality, of the experience of what we call everyday reality. And I am is constantly oscillating between stillness and dynamism. And all creation is a manifestation of this dance between stillness and dynamism. So I am is prior to all experience, including the experience of a personal self and also the experience of what we call the object. So the personal self we can call right now the seer. And what we experience outside or seemingly outside, we can call scenery. I am the seer and everything I observe is the scenery, but the scenery includes my body because I can observe my body. Okay, scenery includes those paintings behind me, and scenery includes every appearance that shows up on the screen of consciousness, which is I am. And what we need to realize at this I am is interacting with its own self and producing in every perceptual experience both the seer and the scenery. So every act perception produces a unique seer and a unique scenery. The continuity to that experience is the presence of being between every snapshot of perception. So I am knows itself as the seer, the scenery, and the process of seeing. I am knows itself as the observer, the observed, and the process of observing. I am is the knower, the process of knowing, and the known. However we want to phrase it. So when I say seeing or observing or knowing, it's the same thing. Or even we can say measuring experience. I am measures experience and then metabolizes the experience into what we call everyday reality. And the most fundamental way I am knows experience, most fundamental way, is what we call sensing, sense experience. And the grossest expression of that sense experience is perceptual activity, okay, which is sound, colors, shapes, forms, tastes, smells, textures. That's fundamental. You can take any experience and break it up into its perceptual components. So let's say I show you this beautiful statue. It's the Divine Feminine, the goddess of compassion. So that's the meaning given to this perceptual experience. The perceptual experience on the level of seeing is just colors, shapes, and forms, as are those paintings, as is everything in the background that you see, including me, colors, shapes, and form. But as soon as we give it a name or give it a meaning, it becomes an object. Now this is a statue, okay? Statue of the Divine Feminine, the goddess of compassion, Tara. Or I look at another so-called object. The experience perceptually is colors, shapes, and forms, like everything else, perceptually. On the tactile level, it's sensation. I could smell and taste it. I could make sounds with it. But the moment I give meaning to this experience, it becomes an object. It becomes something out there. In fact, it's a perceptual activity in here meaning in consciousness. And not only is it a perceptual activity in consciousness, it's a modification of consciousness as that, as this, as that painting, as you, as me, as everything else. So, I am is the source of this experience, that experience, what you're hearing, what you're interpreting, etc. Perceptual activity gives us the construct of the material physical world. But then there's another activity that is happening behind that perceptual activity. It's what we call feeling. Feelings are more energetic. They're like sensations both inside the body, but also they're thoughts linked to sensations in the body, but thoughts that are entangled with perception. And that's the movement prana that Eastern wisdom traditions call vital energy. It's a little more subtle than physical energy, or physical energy that we define as matter. But we know that matter is also energy, and energy is the movement of consciousness, actually, as it knows itself symbolically as activity. And that activity in every act of perception produces a unique seer, a unique scenery, and a unique process of seeing. Seeing is fundamental. The seer and the scenery are produced in every act of seeing. Every act of seeing. Perception is the activity, and the perceiver and that which is perceived is produced in every act of perception. Feeling is the activity, emotion, which is entangled with the perception that we call the physical world. But feeling generates emotions, which is a subtle form of experience. So the gross form of experience is what we call matter. A little subtler form of experience is what we call feeling. Even more subtle than that is thought. Because thought is even more refined entanglement of perception and feeling given meaning. Thought gives meaning to perceptions, sensations, feelings, And by giving it meaning, it constructs, conceives, becomes the physical world. So thought is even more subtle than feeling. And what is more subtle than feeling is what we call archetypal divine experiences of higher consciousness: truth, goodness, beauty, harmony, love, compassion, joy, equanimity, insight, intuition, inspiration, vision, creativity, anything that we want to, we can imagine. So that is even more fundamental, the archetypal level. And these statues that I'm showing you, these are archetypal symbols of higher consciousness. So we can go into details into how we can actualize the experience of these archetypal symbols of consciousness. This is one of my favorites, Ganesh. And every aspect of that Ganesh symbolically represents a quality of consciousness. So all the way through, from perception to feeling to thought to intuition to insight to creativity to vision to higher calling to what can be possibly created, these are subtler levels of activity of I am. I am at every level produces an experience. And when you move your hands, that is changing sensations, transforming sensations. And when you just pay attention and listen, that is being aware of sensations. And by sensations, I mean perceptions, images, feelings, thoughts, everything that we call experience. We metabolize that experience through attention and intention into the creation of everyday reality. And in every activity of seeing or perceiving or observing or measuring, we create the experience of a unique process of seeing, a unique scenery. When we think only from a very limited perspective of the ego mind, then there's separation, there's fear, there's existential anxiety, there's even the fear of death, because the separate mind is a provisional mind, constantly changing. Constantly changing. There's every act of perception, every thought, every feeling, every sensation actually creates a new you and a new scenery and a new experience. It's our destiny to create infinite experiences, multi-dimensions of space and time, if we only understand that I am is fundamental. It's before I am Deepak Chopra, before this object of experience, before I can even see the Milky Way galaxy or a starlit sky. All that is nothing other than modifications of I am as a process called sensing. Sense perceptions, sensations, interoception, imagination, feeling, thought, all entangled into the construction of reality. All entangled into the construction of reality. So reality is a projection of I am. And I am projects reality as infinite knowers, infinite modes of knowing, and infinite things known eternally and timelessly in what we call here and now. And all we have to do is settle, sink into I am, and choose possibilities. Choose possibilities. And we choose possibilities by choosing sensations, and by actually the alchemy of sensation is you change sensations. Motor activity is changing sensations. Sensory activity is paying attention to sensations. And attention and intention are the triggers for transformation and manifestation. Infinite manifestations. What is born and dies in timeless now is a sensation. That's it. And that is happening eternally and now. What is not born and what never dies is that which modifies itself into sensations. Sensations mean all entanglement of sense, perceptions, feelings, images, thoughts, all of that is entangled sensations. So that was the basis of the STOP formula. Anytime you're stressed, stop, take 3 deep breaths, observe the sensations, and then move with awareness in the direction of sensation that brings you joy, that brings you love, that actually maximizes the emergence of platonic values and platonic truths, goodness, beauty, harmony, love, compassion, joy, equanimity. That's where consciousness is evolving. That's the direction. Ultimately, it's evolving to the manifestation of its own perfection. And its own perfection is infinite silence and infinite dynamism at the same time. Infinite dynamism, infinite silence at the same time. Being and becoming. Being and becoming. And everything in between. This is not good enough intellectually. We have to experience this. And this is the whole purpose of what we call yoga. Settle into being. Look at possibilities and choose in the direction of creativity, because creativity, by the way, every quality that we mention of consciousness is a non-local quality, and yet we have the experience of locality because we identify with an activity called perception that creates the sphere and the scenery, the separation. You say, why does consciousness do that? If it's one and infinite and full of bliss, and why does it do that? Well, because consciousness conceives experience. And the only way it can conceive experience is through separation. Without separation, there is no experience. Okay? Potentiality has no experience. It's pregnant with possibility as experience. So, manifestation requires separation. But creativity requires going back to the undifferentiated state of consciousness in which there is no separation. Going back to the source. Going back to the presence in which sensations arise and subside. And our job, choose the right sensations, attention, intention. So I hope that has helped you a little bit today. We can go into each of these levels of experience. Physical, subtle as feelings, subtle as thought, subtle as intuition, subtler as creativity, subtle as insight, inspiration, and ultimately the subtlest, the infinitely still domain of infinite modes of knowing and experience. That is life. Life is the continuum of modes of knowing and experience, the continuum of birth and death in every moment, and the knowing that I am is always timeless, here, and eternally now. So I was thinking, let's choose a mantra that kind of encompasses this. And today's mantra is Siddhoham. Siddhoham. S-I-D-O-H, hum. Siddhoham. Mantras are seed intentions of archetypal awareness and consciousness. So this mantra, Siddhoham, is the intention that says, I am awakened. The mantra affirms that present awareness is respect, open, whole, and accepting. Nothing is missing or lacking in your being. This mantra asserts the truth that you're complete just as you are right now. This truth is what gives you your sense of self and self-esteem and gives you a necessary place in the universe. Siddhoham, Siddhoham. I am moving towards the awakened life, which also means meta-human. Meta means beyond, human beyond the conditioned human mind. So thank you again for listening today. I'm thrilled that you are here every day. And I'm receiving your feedback from all over the world. And it's mostly good. So while we're shooting the breeze, we're also feeling a little better. And hopefully that allays anxiety and helps us move to higher levels of knowing and experience. Thank you. Siddhoham.